We're going to talk about the finer points of planting a 3-gallon Rainier Cherry. I'm going to talk about how we dig a hole properly. I like a cone-shaped hole, and that's really because in the case of the feeder root, the surface-most root getting established, we want the new loose soil to be wide at the top. And then that way, if in fact we have poor drainage too, this part up here, the wide part, the shallower part of the cone-shaped hole will dry out quickly. I'm not really big on soil amendments. Of course, you all should know whether or not your soil is, of course, deficient in something, and if it is, make sure you add it in. But in most cases, and in this case, this soil is really, really nice. We're going to work with this soil.
To aid in activating the beneficial microbes in the soil, we'll add the Nature Hills Root Booster, applying it to the outside of the root ball while we backfill.
Cherries require good drainage, so in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to make a spot in the center of the hole that's a little bit higher so that we can take and get this cherry established a little bit above the soil line, so that that first year a portion of that root system will actually be in a mound. Yeah, I think that's where we want it, right about there. That looks good. This root on this plant is fine. It's not root bound, and really nice fresh roots in there, and I don't see any spiraling, so we're in good shape. So we're just going to go ahead and set that plant right there in that hole, and then just going to simply start filling it in. Okay, we tamp it in a little bit, get the plant nice and straight, upright. Then we get our mound built around the tree. Okay, and of course tamp it down real good, pack it in real good. You can see how much we've come up above the soil line, and that's to just ensure that the tree, as it settles into place, it settles above ground. You should never ever plant the tree any deeper than it was in the container. So that soil line in the container should be the soil line that exists when you're done planting. So just, all right, pack our mound in here. Here we go. This puts us roughly about 8 inches above the soil line here, so that as this tree settles into place, it won't be too low and cause it to get water bound during the winter time, especially during the first years when it's getting established. So the root will grow into this zone right here, and then oxygen will be always available no matter how wet the soil line gets below. We go ahead and put in this drip style irrigation. This right here is Netafim, and it actually has a emitter about every 12 inches, and so we've got one for the inside to get it going, and then one on the outside to keep the soil moist further out, to encourage the root to move, of course, into the adjacent soil. Then last, a mulch, and in this case what we're going to use is bark mulch. This is a 1/4 inch minus. I really like it a lot, and we're just going to take and pour it on the top here. Mulch will help to keep the root cool, cut down on evaporation, and then cut down on weeds as well. So I like about 2 inches to 4 inches of mulch on the tree to get started, and then I'll just pull it out away from the crown when it's young, just to keep the crown exposed.
Then we give it a good soaking. Don't forget to pull that bark back about 2 to 3 inches from the crown of the tree.
All right, there we have it. Our Rainier Cherry is planted. It's got an irrigation system around it so that it can be put on a timer, watered regularly, and a mulch to help cool the root, cut down in evaporation, keep the weeds under control. This is now just a matter of time before we start eating these wonderful Rainier cherries.
When receiving a tree in the winter or early spring, they are without leaf or just beginning to leaf out. The number 3 Rainier Cherry we received had a few leaves. From the 4-foot tree we received, it was cut back to 3 well-spaced scaffold limbs at 3 feet tall.